Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar on Lessons on Energy Efficient Construction from West Moberly. My name is Elena Chia, and I also have my colleague here, Kate Murphy. We're from the Fraser Basin Council. As you can see on your screen, there's a couple different options you have to connect to the audio. You can listen through your computer, or you can dial in. And on your control panel, under the audio option, once you click the phone call, it'll give you the PIN code and options for dialing in. So this webinar is part of Fraser Basin Council's First Nations Home Energy Save program, where we work with First Nations to reduce the energy use of homes on reserve. We work at sharing stories and offering learning events like this webinar series. And we also have the goal to build local capacity in energy efficiency, as well as economic development. And I'd like to acknowledge the funders of our program, including the Real Estate Foundation of BC, BC Housing, the BC Ministry of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources, as well as BC Hydro. And if you want to learn more about our program, you can visit our website at fnenergy.ca. So I pointed out a few items on here. On the left column, you can look at community successes. So we share case studies of what First Nations are doing across BC on energy efficiency. We include learning and funding resources. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, you can see that in the right column. So we send out quarterly newsletters talking about our upcoming events, learning resources, and funding opportunities. And for our webinar series, we do a video recording of each of our webinars. So if you want to listen to it afterwards, you can go to our website and look up webinar series. And so some logistics for our webinar today. To limit our background noise, we're going to keep everyone's audio muted. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can type them into the question box under your control panel, or you can send an email to my colleague Kate at fraserbasin@gmail.com. And if you encounter any technical difficulties, same thing, you can contact us through the question box or through our Gmail. So today we're really lucky to have our speaker, Terry Dunn, who's the Housing and Capital Asset Manager from West Moberly First Nation. Terry has been a general contract and business owner for 25 years. As I mentioned, he's currently working for West Moberly and has been in that role of Housing and Capital Manager for the past 5 years. Terry is a member of the Housing and Infrastructure Council for BC. He's completed his property management course at UBC Sauder School of Business, and he's also currently enrolled in UNBC's Master's Certification for Project Management. So at this point, I'm going to pass the control over to Terry so he can start his presentation.
Well, thank you, Elena, for that great introduction. I'm going to get this one fired up here and see if we can get my PowerPoint online, and then if it works properly here. We've been experiencing some great weather up here, and it's been pretty nice this week. We ended up in the high 20s. So I think I've got, can you see it down there? I think I got everything coming together here.
Yeah, I can see the presentation loading.
Right on. So I would like to take this opportunity to say again, thank you to you for having me. It's really important to get this word out on behalf of First Nations and some of the housing issues that we're dealing with. So I just want to welcome everybody to West Moberly. This is a bit of a bio. We are West Moberly First Nations, located on the north shore of Moberly Lake, BC, along Highway 29, approximately 25 kilometers northeast of Chetwynd, BC. There's approximately 150 community members living in homes on reserve. The Moberly Lake average temperature here in the summer is about 22.2 degrees, and overnight lows average around 6.5. The average snowfall, which is the one that we just came through, which probably broke this record, for this area is approximately 169 centimeters over the winter, and which is a lot. On the positive note, though, West Moberly receives approximately 180 hours of sunlight, and that's approximately 6 hours per day. My name is Terry Dunn, Housing and Capital Manager of West Moberly First Nations. West Moberly set out some strong goals, and their vision statement for West Moberly is to be the greenest First Nations community in BC. Their mission statement, West Moberly First Nations is committed to providing direction, and Elaine, I've got that one block here on the side, and I can't see all of it, which is all my controls. Well, while at the same time improving the quality of life for the community.
Hi, Terry. If you wanted to minimize your control panel, you can click on the orange arrow.
Oh, there it is. There we go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This will be achieved by lessening the carbon footprint through creating a housing standard that is based on the concept of high-performance housing construction. The end result would be to achieve passive certification. Implementing the BC Energy Step Code system will be the starting point. Really important that we start to look at some housing standards. Step one is understanding the problem. West Moberly First Nation shares the goal of reducing dependency on fossil fuel. The nation is taking its own approach to achieve this goal and is moving towards the conclusion that high performance and culturally appropriate housing is the central component to energy independence. In the community of West Moberly First Nations, roughly 3/4 of the energy consumed is used to power and heat homes. Within a home, the majority of energy is used to heat the air and the hot water. Reducing the energy used to heat the home and keeping the heat in the home for a longer period of time reduces energy demands on the whole community. And you can imagine if your average cost, and because we will come down to areas in and around average minus 25 degrees Celsius in the winter, this is just an indication of where and how our hydro bills look. The average hydro bill expense for members of West Moberly First Nations is over $500 per month. And we need to find out why such high costs when primary heat for many members is wood. This is an actual heating bill, and you can see the date on there, January 3rd, billed for December 12th, and that 2-month bill was $1,266.51. Huge hydro costs. The Housing Department continued their investigation, and things started to show up that led to the high cost of hydro. The main source of heat in the homes is a combination furnace, wood primary and electric secondary. These furnaces are equipped with a heater that uses between 15 to 20 kilowatts of power. When wood source became depleted, then the occupant would rely on the electrical option, hence an incredible energy cost. We conducted that questionnaire to members that experienced a high hydro cost and asked them if we could supply a heat source that would give them the same comfort as wood they be interested? And it was really surprising. It was an overwhelming yes. I am currently working with an associate from RDH, Building Science in Vancouver, on the retrofitting packages that we need to be able to model, create a cost effectiveness and efficiency level of existing inventory. Not only do we have to look forward to new building, we have to address the current inventory and the ways of making them more efficient. West Moberly conducted an energy audit on 25 of its rental units. The findings of the audit, the average home that we had constructed, and they're not that old, they were built right back 2002 roughly and up, operated at about a 70 to 74% efficiency level. Main loss of energy was determined to be the quality of the exterior doors and windows. Installation in walls and ceiling met BC Building Code standards. The heating system was another major consumption of energy. Wood primary, electric secondary furnace, 20 kilowatts of power. And again, that was one of the biggest things. Instead of going out and being able to split your wood and have wood supply in the minus 20, 25 degree weather, when that wood supply became no longer available or it was difficult to get, people would rely on that electric energy backup. And again, at 20 kilowatts of the elements, it would just consume an incredible amount of power. Our average winter lasts up to 6 months with an average daily temperature of minus 10 Celsius. Our building timeline is very small, so planning is critical for maximum production. This is a picture, these are a couple of pictures of our location in midwinter of this year. And you can see the snow, and although it's very beautiful and sunny, it's also very, very cold. I'd like to just go through this little segment here on passive and to give you an idea of, why won't I click on there? It won't play it. Okay, well, we'll just continue. West Moberly First Nations developed a new housing guide for building culture appropriate and high performance housing. Housing is the #1 investment of a band that a band can make. There is an opportunity to design and build to ensure that homes are resilient to climate change, including high snowfalls and long periods of extreme cold in the winter. Engage the community members about the opportunity that comes with investing in high performance building. Train members in the community on how to manage their homes and how to build. Working right now with a company that's helping us on one of our projects here that is looking at building capacity within the community, where we would send members down. They're a prefab wall panel system, and we would send members down to a training center and help in the construction of the wall panels. At the point of finishing, then those members of the community would come back with the manufacturing of the wall panels and then participate in the setup of the wall panels. So they're going to try to build capacity and development that way in our new production. Energy efficiency. West Moberly has adopted the BC Energy Step Code building requirements as their housing standard for new construction. Contractors must adhere to this code in order to enter in the bidding process, conduct and comply to the blower door test in order for final payment, must work with certified energy advisors to maximize energy efficiency level. That also goes into the fact of that as we go through these builds, we can actually start looking at better and quicker ways to tighten up the envelope, make it more energy efficient and a healthier building. Cost considerations. Everybody's afraid of high performance building because there is an additional cost attached to it. But one of the things I'm going to show you is that this cost is not something that you should be afraid of. In fact, in further expositions, you'll see during the design phase of the home, it is important to understand that there is an additional cost associated with high performance housing. There is a capital cost in the beginning, but over the life of the home, there will be a positive cash flow due to the energy savings. As energy costs increase, the positive cash flow also increases. And people, hopefully you'll see this. So this is West Moberly's solution to for the First Nations housing high performance building standard. Average hydro bill at West Moberly is $500. High performance building will reduce down to about an 80% efficiency level, which means it will reduce that hydro bill down to $100 a month. The monthly savings per house would be $400. At a general construction cost in our area right now, under BC Building Code, is about $225 a square foot. So a 1,000 square foot house would cost you $225,000. To build to step 5 net zero is approximately an 18% capital cost investment in the beginning. And based on the same square footage, you're looking at now $265,500. Now that's a capital cost initially of $40,050, If you were to amortize that over the duration of the mortgage, which would be a 25-year mortgage at a 5% interest rate, your monthly cost on that $40,500 would be $235.55. So based on your energy savings, you're still right on day one, you're actually got a positive cash flow of $164.45. And as I said earlier, as energy costs rise, your efficiency level stays the same, which means your positive cash flow per month increases by investing in the beginning. The community needed to experience high performance building. It was one of the things, in order for the entire community to experience this high performance building, Chief and Council here decided that that the new health station should be PASA certified. Now, when we talk PASA certified, this is FIA certified. The pre-drawing of it is now done, or was pre-FIA certified prior to construction. This is a picture of the building as we speak, and I hope this will work for us. Yes, it will. This is really kind of a cool thing. This is a time-lapse photography, and it'll give you a really good idea of the weather conditions that we're in and what we have to build through and how we have to build. Now that building actually was started, the time-lapse photography was started on October, I think it was October 6th. The duration of that now to where you see it at that end result is now taken to April 14th. We have not put on the wall system yet. The wall system for this particular job is they're built and they're sitting in Envermeer right now. We're just waiting for geotechnical testing of the backfill the building, and then once it's all backfilled, which should happen fairly shortly, then the wall panel systems will come in and will be erected in about a 14-day period. Basically, with going with the passive certification and in the health station, it was really important that we wanted everybody within the community to be able to experience what high performance building is. If we sat, and Chief and Council talked about it, that if we went to an individual home or complex, maybe a multiplex, multi-home, not everybody within the community could experience what true passive and the advantages of passive or high efficiency housing has. So the health station is a perfect scenario for us to be able to have everybody in the community come in, experience the inside environment within the enclosed atmosphere, the health. We feel very strongly that within the first probably 2 or 3 days, there's going to be an incredible response, even from the staff that are working in the conditions inside. This building will be able to be operated on. It's a 3,000 square foot building, main floor with full basement. The main floor will consume approximately 2,000 watts of power. Now, 2,000 watts of power to heat that is about the equivalent of a high performance hair dryer. So a blow dryer that produces 1,500 to 2,000 watts of power, we will be able to entirely heat this building for that same cost. There's intentions and plans are in place that there will be the Tesla wall system put in once Tesla it becomes CSA approved in Canada. And then we are also putting solar panels on the roof or again up against the back side of the hillside for energy source and storage. The construction of the passive house is set to be finished in November 2018. And then the First Nations Health Authority is our major partner in this project. And the First Nations Health Authority has indicated that the building will be the first PAFSA certified health station under their umbrella, and probably the first commercial application of PAFSA certification on reserve in Canada. We're just looking at that. Once the building is completed, every member of the community will be able to experience the true value of high performance, energy efficient construction. This will make a difference this will make the decision that all new construction needs to be high performance focused. And before I say thank you, it's so important to understand that everybody gets this opportunity to be able to experience it. As we move into looking at different applications, it would be nice that everybody had a chance to experience what it actually feels like. I was able to experience that in Fort St. John. The city of Fort St. John built a passive house there as a model for their future developments of housing and infrastructure within the city. And to be honest with you, I had never been in a passive or even really totally understood what passive was. Since that time, I've become passive certified. It's become a passion. The minute you go into any type of environment into passive, you actually feel the results immediately. It's not even something that you can say, well, I'll get used to. You actually feel it immediately. And it's an incredibly calming atmosphere. It's one of those things you just have to process it, feel it, and know that that the future is bright if we stay on this line. I know with Indigenous I've done a lot of research in regards to the Pan-Canadian Agreement and Canada's commitment through the Pan-Canadian Framework and Canada's commitment to reducing the greenhouse gases. I understand BC's steps in enforcing in time the BC Energy Code step code system, all reaching for that ultimate goal by 2030 that we will be at least net zero. Net zero is 1 on the blower door test. Pass the certified is 0.6. So even at net zero, we're at a very high energy efficiency level. And I think First Nations, it would be to their advantage because the step code system is a gradual, incremented time up. Start using that as their mechanism of housing standards and aiming lawfully to reaching step 5 by 2030. The West Moberly has made their goal. We are going to, on new builds, set our mark at step 3 with achievable of step 4 right off the bat with our grid. But not all bands can afford to do that. Not all bands are in that economic condition to be able to do that. And by going by step 1, 2, and 3, they can actually move themselves up that ladder to where their energy efficiency levels will get greater and greater, and their savings will be even better. So I hope that's a real brief outline of what we're doing here, what Chief and Council, the directions that they want us to move in. And we're trying to do all the research and document everything we can to make sure that this is the right direction. But with everything that we've seen to this point, we believe very strongly that high performance, energy efficient construction is the only way to go. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Elena, for having me on. And anybody that's out there, any questions, I would love to answer anything I can. And I just want to say thank you again.
Well, thank you so much, Terry, for offering your time and efforts to put together this presentation for us. I think it's been, really fascinating getting a broader context of looking into what West Moberly is doing on energy efficient housing on both new builds and for existing homes. So right now we have plenty of time for questions, and I see a couple have already popped up. The first one, I believe you've already answered on which energy step you chose for West Moberly. It sounded like you went with step 3.
Yeah, we're setting ours as step 3 as our first step that we're going to go right into, and then if everything works, we hope to obtain step 4. And basically, the difference is between the blower door test. The increments are not that much different. So at step 3, under the air tightness, the air exchange, basically the air changes per hour at 50 PA pressure. In step 3, it is 2.5 equal or lesser, and at step 4, it's 1.5. So it's got better air tightness. The peak thermal is actually greater by about 10 kilowatt hours. So it takes it's a more attention to detail by getting it to step 4. Okay, but step 3, based on the current construction, our current construction industry, and having the construction industry having to adapt to the new step code system, we didn't want to go too lofty right off the bat because it is going to be such a huge training curve for everybody. So step 2, basically step 1 there isn't an air tightness on step 1. Step 2 is 3.0. Step 3 is 2.5, and then step 4 is 1.5. Step 5, which is net zero, is 1. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that does provide a lot of detail into the different steps, which is great to know. And our second question from Uliana, as at the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned a survey which asked residents how they would feel about replacing their current heating system if it was comparable in comfort to wood heat. And she's wondering what heating systems you are considering for homes.
Well, one of the biggest things, it was really kind of interesting when we conducted this, because we thought as a whole that wood heat was somewhat, and I have to be careful, a cultural thing. But what it really more indicated was it was more comfort than it was, because it was dry. It was a nice heat. It was more of a comfort heat than it was a cultural thing. So as we started looking at what can we do to use to actually create that same comfort level, whether it was 22 degrees Celsius in your home, whatever that comfort level was, if we could create that through alternative heating sources, would you be okay with that? And that's what the people said, well, absolutely. So if I don't have to go out and chop wood and split wood and everything, and my inside temperature of my home is still at that comfort level of 22, I would be fine with that. So under the enveloping package and the passive certification package and your energy efficiency level, you can obtain that, because through your heat exchange system, you can set that's where your comfort level is. So you can control that inside the actual envelope of the home. Many times we actually were up at the house in Fort St. John, and if you had a large number of people in there, say a party of 10 or 15 people, there is no direct furnace in there. There is no forced air furnace. It's all on a heat exchange system. And with a party of 10 to 15 people in there, you're actually opening up the windows because it's heating up and getting too hot. So your inside cavity can be controlled by the inside activities that are going on. So you don't have to go out and split wood. So it's a controllable environment.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Terry. And we have some specific technical questions from Eduardo, who asked, what is the ROU value of the windows that you have specified? And what is the R value of the walls for your passive house building?
Well, again, every region, and that's one of the things that we're really taking to say, and I'm going to have to go to the Housing and Infrastructure Council. To give you an example, the West Moberly First Nations passive house station is a 16-inch wall. Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is regionally, that varies based on regional temperature and variance in climate. So it's really difficult to say, okay, that we have to have an R40 wall up here, where down south you may only need an R22 and air tightness. But it has to do with air tightness too, and the tightness of that air leakage, because leakage is huge. That's air loss. If you have leakage within your building envelope, you have heat loss in that envelope. So it's the enveloping that's really important. The windows that we're talking about are triple glaze. They're triple glaze right now out of Europe, but I know there's a manufacturer down south that's now producing PAPSA certified windows, which is a company called Cascadia, and they're a fiberglass window system that are doing that. So as competition gets out there, instead of us having to go to Europe to get all the PAPSA certified require amenities, which are doors, windows, are the most difficult to find over here. we're going to start seeing those build up in North America. We're going to see the availability in North America a lot greater as time goes. So I know Cascadia, we looked at it as our windows. We imported our windows out of Germany. Our windows for the health station came in at about $120 a square foot. Cascadia windows for equivalent, or very close to equivalent, were coming in at about $68 a square foot. So right off the bat, considerable savings by having them produced in our own area. So those are all going to change, and every region is different, and every region is based on the PHPP modeling system, which RDH will do. There are two trains of thought, and there are two companies out there that are moving very strongly in passive. Of course, it's Passive House Canada and FIAS. Now, FIAS will take a regional temperature structure, and they will incorporate that regional location and temperature and variance into their modeling practice and for certification. Passive House Canada is a little bit more tighter on that. They don't do the regional temperature changes. So our health station is an actual FIAS certified. We were looking at the possibility of going passive certified, and in our location right now, because of cost, we couldn't achieve passive certification through Passive House Canada, but we could through the FIAS because of the regional allowance for the modeling. So I really can't answer the question for you of what wall thickness is because every region is different. Okay?
Yeah, that's a really important point, Terry, and good to know about some of the differences within the NORF's regional context.
Yeah.
We have a question from Graham about your heating system. So he's asking, has there been any updates to the original heating systems? Have heat pumps or other high efficiency heating options been considered as a retrofit solution for existing housing?
That's a really good question. We are actually right now in a feasibility study for geothermal. We're looking at the possibility of going. What we found out so far is that there's a hot spot that we have to hit, and we're not quite there. In our region, the hot spot is considerable depth. It's a long ways down. So what we're looking at is the possibility of going geothermal, going down far enough that we can create an actual energy reserve. And then what we'll do is we'll incorporate that into our housing structure. We're not going to do it on an individual simply because we can't get deep enough to get enough of the consistent temperature to be able to maintain a home. But if we can do a geothermal generation system that we can regenerate it ourselves and then supply the community, that's what we're looking at this point. The existing houses or the new houses that we will be looking at, they will be working on HRVs, heat system. The ones that we've tried an experiment. We're going to try to retrofit out one home that has had incredibly high costs in hydro, and they're the ones that was in the $1,200 every 2 months range. What we're going to do is we're going to pull out the actual electric wood fireplace or furnace, and we're going to incorporate it, going back and just trying it, a standard forest air propane system right now with a wood backup freestand. And let's just see if we're going to see if that changes the hydro cost. Because once we determine that if it was the stoves that were consuming all this energy, then we can start moving in a direction of alternative energy sources. But we don't have natural gas here, anything like that. We have propane, so we're somewhat limited to our resources. So I hope that helps.
Thanks, Terry. And related to retrofits, Carol is interested in learning about whether you have a retrofit strategy And if so, can you provide more details about it?
Well, the retrofit, again, it's a pretty difficult, and it's going to be an arduous task to take on, because as you can understand and imagine, there's a lot of elements involved with this. Number one is the house worth it? You know, at what age and where is it at that a retrofit would become cost effective? And because of all the different sizes of homes and variations of design, retrofitting becomes quite challenging. What we are wanting to look at is making sure, again, windows, huge, doors and exterior door systems, huge, being able to incorporate those, doing removal of siding, maybe doing a Larson truss system or rigid on the exterior. We don't have to worry about setbacks here. We could build out without changing the footprint. But again, we have to look at what that cost is. I did one house that is about a 13-year-old home. It came in at about 72% efficiency level right now, but yet the heating costs were still quite substantial. I did a retrofit model on that, and that dollar value to retrofit it to bring it up to about an 86% level from a 72% level was going to cost in excess of $80,000. So when you started looking at that, okay, now the capital cost return on that $86,000 and only incrementing it up 14% in an energy cost, we really have to do our numbers to look at, is it worth it? How far do you go? Or do you just start over? So every home is going to be kind of individual, but we're going to try to do a benchmark of see where the two sectors cross over and try to determine whether or not feasible or not feasible, and then look at other alternatives.
Makes a lot of sense, for sure.
Okay.
I have a question here about funding opportunities. Which kind of funding resources do you know about for communities who are interested in building energy efficient homes?
Well, I know as we start moving forward in this movement and starting looking, I think one of the biggest challenges is I'm kind of the guy that gets in the bush with a big machete and starts clearing my own path. I really believe that as the nations start pulling together, and this is what we want, and this is what we want to go for, we can make some noise and make some changes in the funding process. When I did the presentation, or when we did the presentation to the First Nations Health Authority in regards to the health station, we sold them on the fact that this 3,000 square foot building will only cost you maybe $75, $80 a month for your energy costs. That raised a lot of eyebrows. You know, one of the biggest things that I really believe in is that we did our homework. We made sure that we had all the information required to substantiate our claim that this was a good move. That's what we need to do as a nation, and as First Nations, to start staking our claim, doing our research, getting our facts, and going after them and saying, you know, if you look at that $168 on my report there, the $165 on that for a positive cash flow, as that goes up, you know, that's economic stimulus within the community. That's extra cash in the community that's not being paid out to a corporate entity, and it comes back. And as that grows, it grows. So there's a support rate there going. We're creating a bit of an economic boost just in the savings with the energy savings. So as far as funding out there, I'm going to tell you, I know I've had some discussions with CMHC. They are very interested in this movement and the moving forward. And if we can fall into their numbers in regards to energy efficiency and cost, They're excited. Talked with INAC on some retrofitting processes of existing buildings. Again, I think, to be honest with you, not a lot of people are paying a whole lot of attention right now, but as a nation, as we start moving forward, the nation can start setting the groundwork. In the the Pan-Canadian framework, I just want an expert that came out that was in there, and it said, and this was their opening in the forward. It says, in the Paris Agreement, parties agreed that they should, when taking action to address climate change, recognize and respect the rights of Indigenous people. As we implement this framework, we will move forward respecting the rights of Indigenous people with robust, meaningful engagement, drawing on their traditional knowledge. We will take into account the unique circumstances and opportunity of Indigenous people and the northern, remote, and vulnerable communities. We acknowledge and thank Indigenous people across Canada for their climate leadership, long before the Paris Agreement, and for being active drivers in positive change. That's the federal government saying, this is what we believe. And when I read that, I'm going, you know, when you're looking at funding and everything else, the federal government is opening up the door saying, we're going to listen to the First Nations people. Here's the chance to make the voice, and here's the chance to move forward. In that article, and go online, it's a PDF file, the Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth and Climate Change. It's a signed off thing that the government has signed. And the reference to Indigenous and communications is huge. You know, as we go forward, we really need to use that as the pioneers. Move it forward. We can do that. The funding will become available. We just have to step out and keep moving hard at this. Does that help?
Yes, it does, Terry. And I think it's really significant to bring in that broader policy context, you know, what's happening at the federal level with the Pan-Canadian Framework, and Absolutely. How does the work you do at West Moberly fit into that. So thanks for bringing that up. At this point, I'm at the end of the questions from our audience. So if we don't have any more questions, I can wrap things up. I wanted to point out to everyone that in the handouts panel, or handouts option in the control panel, you'll see there's the new housing guide for West Moberly First Nations that Terry is generously sharing with us. So if you're interested in learning more detail about what West Moberly is doing, I highly suggest you download their new housing guide. And at this point, I wanted to say a really big thank you to Terry for your time. It's been really fascinating hearing from you this morning, and we really appreciate you being our speaker today.
Great. Well, you know what? I'm honored that you asked me to come on board and to kind of just tell the story of West Moberly. And you know, it's really important that I've been in the housing industry for quite a few years. I've seen housing from all over the province and for First Nations, and you know, it's become part of my walk of trying to make the biggest difference I can in moving First Nations housing to a higher level, which the Indigenous rightly deserve over all these years. And as a contractor and a general contractor, I was very, 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 very ashamed of some of the things I saw. And I believe that a change is coming, and then we can make a difference, and we can set the standard that is for First Nations only. So I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to get on my soapbox and to really push the the mission forward to making a difference. So thank you so much, you guys. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, well, you're doing a lot of wonderful work, Terry, and we appreciate you sharing your story with us.